Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we're going to talk about context, the surrounding details of an event. We're going to do this because in the United States, we have a habit of, ignoring the details when it comes to international, national events and politics. We do this because we like to reinforce our own beliefs. And it's a whole lot easier to spin something if you don't look at the details and you just look at the action. But that's not the right way to do things because we use context all day, every day in our normal lives, and that's actually how we determine moral and societal value. Since the teacher asked me to talk about this, we'll start off with an example that's relevant to that group. The action, the event, is a student looking at their neighbor's desk. The context, the surrounding details, determine whether or not that's good or bad. If the student is looking at their neighbor's desk to get the page number so they can follow along in the book, well, that's a good thing. If they're doing it in the middle of a test, well, that's probably not a good thing. If I was to take this and smash through your wall in the middle of the night, drag you out of bed unconscious, and throw you into the back of a vehicle, it seems like it would be a bad thing, right? And it would be, unless I had just gotten off a fire truck and I was putting you in an ambulance. Then it would be a good thing. Context is what determines moral value, societal value, the surrounding details. If you remove those, you can't make an informed judgment. What's being compared right now are the events of Capitol Hill recently and the events of this summer. People are doing it because the actions look the same. They appear similar. But what about context? What about the details? Are they really the same? So, this summer, what was it about? Why was it occurring? Systemic racism, a whole bunch of unjust violence being visited upon people that may really not have deserved it, and an encroaching authoritarian state. There were other reasons, but those were the uniting ones. What about Capitol Hill? It was in furtherance of an authoritarian state. It was about undermining the people's voice because some people didn't like the outcome and they had been misled by people in power. Those don't seem the same to me. They may to you. If you're one of those people who believes that violence is always wrong, no matter what, then yeah, to you, morally, they're the same. Most people aren't like that, though. You cannot draw equivalencies based solely on the action. I would imagine, as high school students, that your textbook probably mentions the civil rights movement. I would hope so, anyway. Probably focuses on the 1960s and Martin Luther King. I Have a Dream and all that. Very peaceful, right? Charismatic Southern preacher, gave some speeches, and everybody held hands and kumbaya and all that. What's the reality? There were hundreds of riots. Hundreds. What's the context? A whole bunch of people who were disenfranchised. They didn't have a voice in their government, in their own lives, and it was institutionalized through law. I mean, that situation sounds bad. Getting rid of that would be a societal good. You may look at the action that assisted and acted as a catalyst for that, and man, that's horrible. Yeah, maybe. But context gets to determine the rest of it. What about Capitol Hill? Literally the opposite. It was about removing people's voice from government, throwing out a whole bunch of votes because people didn't like the outcome and had been misled by a bunch of powerful politicians. Doesn't seem the same. What about the events of this summer? Systemic racism. And although the civil rights movement in the 1960s and 70s, it got rid of a lot of the institutional laws that upheld that racism, the institutional memory is still there. Institutions, just like people, they have habits. And a lot of institutions are still in the habit of treating certain groups of people as lesser. And therefore, they end up with unjust violence being visited upon them. That's a situation that getting rid of probably a societal good, right? Again, you may look at the action and say, man, that's horrible. I wish they wouldn't have done that. But you have to look at the context. Riots are the language of the unheard. And I would point out that even that peaceful, charismatic Southern preacher would not condemn a riot without condemning the source, the context, what created it. Context is incredibly important if you want to understand what's going on in the world. You cannot get that by watching 60-second headline news clips. You can't get it from footage. You have to know the details, who, what, when, where, why, the stuff behind it. You can fill volumes of books with information that will never be in a newspaper. If you want to be effective in the world, you want to be relevant, you want to matter, you have to know the story behind the news. And you're only going to get that through examining the context. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.